is it.
Got the Black Beast. She's mean.
Yes, speaking of, is that the official name for it? We do
Black
not.
Beast.
Okay, the Black Beast.
If anybody's got a better name, let me know.
Right. That is open. So for now, it is the Black Beast. So I figured we would just start with number one, addressing a couple of the questions that we've had, and to be honest, questions that we still have with this thing. Then we'll go over kind of the state that we found it in and purchased it in, and what we've done to it since. So first and foremost is the rear sprocket and chain tensioner setup down here. This is kind of a unique setup. This comes from a company called Proto Die Racing. I actually think they do not exist anymore. Unfortunately, they're a very innovative company. We love their rear end design here. So we need to get a new chain. This is just a standard chain without any little rubber O-rings or X-ring setup inside of it. So it is starting to get long, and we're kind of at the end of our chain tensioner here. But this is the setup, and then it just goes right to the sprocket on the bike. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe we have 3 sprockets for this thing. The biggest one does not fit, and I think it's a 70 tooth, correct?
I think so.
I think so. So I believe this is a 68, and I think it either had a 64 or a 66 on it when we got it. Which I have no idea how the chain was ever tight enough to do that. Either that or we have, I mean, I'm looking down here at the bottom, and I can tell there's a lot of gap in there, so we have stretched the crap out of the chain. So, but anyway, there is the Protolite CNC cutout there. So this has been an absolutely awesome rear end, and these are Porsche CVs that they have.
The 930 CV.
Yeah, the 930 CV axles that they have attached to their custom bearing holder back here that they've made, which is and set up with whoever built this thing put Wilwood brakes all the way around, so they have a large rotor here on the back, single rotor. So it's kind of similar to a independent rear suspension like ATV or side-by-side setup, but taken to quite another level with the sprocket and superbike engine cradle setup. So the idea with these engine cradles were that you could hook up a bunch of different superbike engines to it. And this is a Suzuki GSXR 750, and we believe it is a 03. I think I think it's so 01 to 03 are all the same, more or less. And I know we're in that year range because that we ironically did have a chain. What did it come? The chain actually didn't come loose, but part of the sprocket came off. This is a 2-piece sprocket, and this is before we were a little on top of it about Loctite, and the sprocket came off, chain came loose, so I guess the chain itself did not break, but it did the deal where it slaps the, if I can camera up here, it slaps the water pump and part of the clutch cover here. So we actually ended up replacing a water pump and a clutch cover when that little incident happened. So we did learn a little bit about the engine during that time, but other than that, we really have not torn into this thing that much.
16,000 miles.
Yeah, and it had, is that what it had when we got it?
That's what it has right now.
That's what it has right now, okay. The other major question with this engine was how did we get the speedometer so correct? And Mark, if you want to say your 2 cents about that it's on the...
Oh, the speedometer is definitely on the crankcase. There's no wires or anything going back to the rear end or the tires. And it just has to do with the size of this tire compared to the bike tire.
Yep. So, well, and the sprocket setup that we have.
Well, yeah.
So
lucky and just got within 10 miles.
Yes, I cannot currently see the front sprocket it has on there. As I remember it, I think we could have fit a larger one, so I'm guessing it's either stock or one size larger than whatever comes on the stock Gixxer 750. Because we did have that whole cover off when we had to do that repair earlier. So as of now, this thing is working off of mostly cables for its motor control. So it came with a stock cable clutch. These bikes did not have the hydraulic clutch back in the day, so we have a very interesting cable setup that came on this bike. They had one of these kind of cable nuts here. So we recently were fraying our clutch cable, so we move the cable nut a little bit shorter, and we re-welded where this clutch cable mount up front goes on. It was a little bit farther back, and we were getting some resistance on the pedal. So this is much tighter, much better response now. This buggy, we've taken a little bit more care with mounting some of these things. As you can see, we've used a ball joint here just to try and keep these cables right there as straight as we can when you are working it. But as you can see, it is starting to fray. So this one is just going to be it's a cable muncher. We're gonna have to keep cables on hand when that's a willing sacrifice, if you will.
Cheap parts are okay.
Yeah. The throttle cable it's gonna suffer the same problems eventually, but we've tried to do just about everything we can. We've got
the bolt end.
Yeah, it does have a bolt end. That one actually, we got that one a little tight. It doesn't move quite as much as it used to. But any rate, so those are the two controls that we do have set up. These are custom CNC cut pedals that we just did on the table. And then this is the exact same, more or less, setup that we've done in the Bastard Buggy and more recently in the Piranha build that we've done. So it's basically two little tabs on the bottom, a little limiter bar on the front. Sometimes on the back, on the two buggies, we actually use the steering rack as our limiter because it's kind of a nice satisfying metal on metal noise. You literally put the pedal to the metal. But for here, we actually have limiting bars. And then just,
the Wellwood dual master.
And then yes, we are big proponents of not making our own brakes. So we have purchased this on at least two of the buggies we've done now. Jim's buggy, we welded up a brake much like the clutch.
But it's all cable.
Yes.
It has no hydraulic brakes.
Yes, we did the all cable brakes for him. So these guys that do have the hydraulic brake setup, and again, this one has Wilwoods all the way around. And then these arms are the main issue with the buggy currently. The rest of
That's next to be replaced.
Yeah, the rest of the rear and the cage that we have welded up to fix the openness and high levels of danger with the buggy, those have been fixed, but this up front is kind of a little bit of a disaster here. So the suspension apparently was custom made for this buggy. These shocks are spec'd to its weight, so that is absolutely awesome. We'll definitely be reusing those. But down here, hats off to whoever put it together, but that's a lot of shims. And we tried to do what we could when we put the rack and pinion steering in, as this previously just had the little, the like I call them, the Mickey Mouse ear steering. So you had to be like Popeye to be able to steer this thing. So we tried to match this as close as we could to the lower control arm here. A-arm here. But these two are just mounted so far off of where they need to be in order to fit this spindle. So our thoughts on this thing are, do we remake the front and save this frame? But it's so much fun and it has entirely too much power. We're very tempted to make it into a two-person buggy and use this frame possibly for something else in the future. So, anyway, enough of me babbling. It is now time to turn it on, let it rip, and show you what it's all about. So, would you like to do the honors, or you want me to do this?
I'll do it.
Here with my glasses. It's pretty windy out today. You're gonna get a face full of dirt. Can you grab your helmet?
I'm not gonna get too crazy.
Alright. Famous last words. And while we're here, we need to count the links on your chain. So we gotta get a new one of those, because if that damn thing breaks again, I don't want to have to tear a new motor. We got lucky that time. So now that this thing's running, I'm gonna step around it for a second and talk through a few of the things that we have done, a few of the things we want to do. So Mark made this little control panel. This was really neat. This used to sit like in the little throttle yoke that used to be the steering wheel. Yeah. So we moved that over to this box. That's the what is it? Ignition, fan, and then the start button. Still have a key start down here, just for the main on-off. We'll probably update that eventually. Brake bias. Thank you, whoever put this in. This is absolutely awesome. This
and
is what,
hydraulic brake.
yes, and the hydraulic locking e-brake there. So very, very cool setup. Highly recommend those. You can really dial in your brake balance with this dual wheel with caliper setup down here. That is absolutely awesome. Our addition, since you can tell it's a little tight quarters in here, was the steering wheel quick release. I will put a link to the one that we used. It is absolutely awesome. The name escapes me at the moment, but we have indeed bought another for the next buggy. Whoever did this obviously included the tachometer and speedometer up here, so I think we just remounted it, moved it over, whatever we did. We redid this. This thing is like a bolt action rifle.
Not much to move with.
Go ahead and shift into All right, well, I'm gonna get back out of the way now.